Estamos pendientes de esta entrevista con Peter Stano, creo que ya está con nosotros. Hi Peter, thanks for coming for Negocios TV, it's a pleasure.
Hello.
Hello Peter, we want to ask you about the tensions between Israel and Iran. Europe is condemning the attack by Iran. I would like to ask you, why was there not such a quick response to the attack of the Iranian consulate in Syria?
Well, actually, the European Union was very clear and very vocal in condemning the attack at the Iranian diplomatic premises in Damascus during the Easter weekend. On the 2nd of April, we did a very, very clear condemnation. On the 3rd of April, we issued even a statement condemning it and recalling the rule of not attacking the diplomatic premises of countries. This is international law. So we have a very good track record as the European Union of condemning the violations of international law whenever they happen.
Peter, how is the fear of an escalation in the Middle East? In what level are we? Borrell was telling in the last hours about an abyss in the Middle East. What do you think about this? How could be the escalation? Peter, we are waiting for the response from Israel to Iran. We are pending of the fear in the Middle East. Enseguida tenemos con nosotros a Peter Stano. Volvemos a conectar con Peter Stano, portavoz principal de Asuntos Exteriores y Política de Seguridad de la Unión Europea. Hi Peter, thanks for coming for Negocios TV. Thanks again.
Hola, buenos días, and sorry for the interruption previously.
No problem, Peter. I would like to ask you about the fear of an escalation in the Middle East. Borrell was talking in the last hours about a very difficult situation. He was talking about the abyss in the situation in Middle East. What do you think about this? What is the height of the level of the fear?
Well, I think the level of the fear from potential escalation or even worse escalation, regional escalation, is there. That is why almost the entire Western community has reacted so fiercely about these unprecedented attacks by Iran, because it carried a huge risk of regional confrontation and more escalation. If you imagine if Iranians would be successful in this attack, what would be the response from Israel, and then what would be the response on this response, etc., etc. So we would be in another vicious circle of violence that would be in no one's interest, because in the end normal ordinary people would be paying the highest price for it. They would be dying, the property would be destroyed. So of course, I mean, the international community doesn't want to see more escalation, and that's why all of us, the European Union, other partners, especially from the Western community, are calling for the escalation.
Peter, how can we stop this escalation? What can we do? I don't know. We are waiting for the response of Israel. The World Cabinet is in a meeting in this moment. How can we stop Netanyahu in this moment? How can we prevent the escalation in the conflict?
In the European Union, we always try to engage, to increase our engagement, our efforts with regional, of course, with the main actors. That's why we are talking to the Israelis, but also to the Iranians. High Representative Borrell was on the phone yesterday again with the Iranian foreign minister, conveying to him the unequivocal condemnation of the wide-scale attacks against Israel, but also urging him not to escalate. And if you look at our messages conveyed to Israel consistently over the last weeks and months, are exactly, you have the right to defend yourself from the terrorist attacks by Hamas, but please don't escalate further beyond the region. So this is a message we have for everyone. We have to prevent the escalation, and with this objective, we are engaging with the partners, trying to convince them that everyone stands to lose from more confrontation.
Peter, I would like to ask you also about Russia. We are talking in the last weeks, the last months, about an imminent war in Europe. What do you think about this? What is the fear of Russian aggression in Europe more than in Ukraine?
Well, it's not so much the fear of a war, it's more the awareness of a possibility that things might deteriorate even further, especially if Ukraine will not be able to defend itself. Ukraine, in its rightful defense against the Russian aggression, depends on the support from the European Union and from international partners, also from the United States. But we are seeing that the support is not reaching Ukrainians in that extent and with that speed as they would need in the light of increased Russian aggression. Now what the Russians are doing, they are sending more and more missiles, more and more drones to attack the civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. So imagine Ukraine falls. Would Putin stop in Ukraine? Well, the chances are that not that he would feel encouraged by the lack of decisive response of the Western community or international community, and then he could go further. He could swallow Moldova, Georgia. Would he stop there? Well, we don't know, but there are risks for the Europeans as well. And the Ukrainians, they are fighting also for the future of the European Union. That's why we need to support them. And that's why we need to be prepared also for the possibility of the war, because we have seen over the last 2 years and something that Putin is not interested in peace. He escalates and escalates and escalates this aggression despite the worldwide condemnation. So we need to be ready not only to support Ukraine, but also for the possibility that the war might actually extend beyond Ukraine's border, not by our choice, but by the reckless behavior of Putin's regime in Moscow.
Peter, the last question, talking about Ukraine, Ukraine is asking for more patriots. We are telling in the last hours that Germany is going to give one more patriot. How more time? How more can hold the situation in Ukraine? How much can resist? Because the situation is worse each time.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Ukraine does not have time. Time in Ukraine is measured in people's lives and the extent of destruction Russia inflicts on the Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. Lately, Putin's drones and bombs are aimed at power plants. Power plants are important for people to heat their homes, to provide them energy, to provide them electricity. So this is really a nasty way of, inhuman way of conducting an aggression against the country. And of course, Ukraine doesn't have time. They need as much support as possible from us, from the Europeans, from the United States, from other international partners. They need more ammunition. They need more anti-aircraft batteries and equipment to help them to protect themselves from the aerial attacks, because most of the attacks, apart from the artillery fighting in the east of Ukraine, most of the attacks across Ukraine are conducted by drones and ballistic missiles or missiles. So of course Ukraine needs more and faster, and this is what High Representative is saying all the time, and he's urging the member states to provide Ukraine what it needs more and faster, because again, time in Ukraine is measured in people's lives.
Peter, thanks for being here in Negocios TV. It's a pleasure counting with you. Thanks, Peter.
Muchas gracias.